Hello and welcome everybody to a Buy Round special. I'm your host, James Graham, and joined by leading journalist Michael Chammas, where we are going to be discussing the big P word.
Oh.
Pressure.
Oh.
What did you think it was going to be?
I don't know. I just heard the big P word. And
The big P, yes.
Peter Volandis. Don't know what else you could throw in there.
Yeah. Well, look, pressure. Pressure is a privilege. It's part of the territory. I think everybody involved in the NRL, whatever the role, whatever the department, you are under pressure, some more than others. So we're going to dive into our 2026 people, clubs, teams, situations that are going to provide the most pressure. The first place we're going to kick off, retiring legend. The Sunday Buzz.
I think what's the buzz?
What's the buzz? The Sunday column that actually comes out, first edition, around about 5:30 on a Saturday evening, often at family barbecues. I'm sneaking off to see what Buzz has got in his gossip column, sitting on the toilet, flicking through it, go, who's that? Who's that? I often feel beyond dumb because I can't figure out who these people are. And I've spoken and then speak to people and they go, well, you know, that is this person. I'm like, really?
So you're not throwing your hat in the ring then to replace Buzz?
Well, I'm just too much of a simpleton, I think. And look, I've spoke to Buzz. I know a lot goes into this, and I know that it's a big ticket item for the Sunday Telegraph and all the traffic that it gets online. It's a bit of Buzz v. Wilder in the Sunday. I don't like to call them gossip columns. I guess general interest rugby league, NRL. Let's label it as that. But the person that takes over this role after Buzz has been such a success for such a period of time, I guess that they're under pressure to not just match it, but bring new light.
It's like taking over from Sir Alex Ferguson, right? Just not going to end well for whoever does it.
Well, to be fair, David Moyes didn't have AI.
Oh, that's true.
So whoever has it now, I mean, or could it be a faceless person? Could it just be give us some goss on rugby league and AI take over?
I just think the pressure's on that Danny Widler now that he's got clean air to dominate the Sunday landscape. He's been going head-to-head with Buzz for a number of years. I have to say that Widler's had his measure. I got my Channel 9 hat on. Well done, Danny. But it's like, in a serious note, it's end of an era. But you know, it's an opportunity for someone at the Telegraph to step up and make it their own. I just thought Buzz got a bit too complacent in his old age, and he started to focus on other opportunities. His NRL 360 gig. Now he's a Sunday special on your Triple M Sunday sin bin. He's just got too many fingers in too many pies, and he couldn't give the time that was needed to make that column a success. So, unfortunately, he goes out on the wrong note.
He goes out on the wrong note. Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe it was tactical that like people at the Telegraph held him back, let it dip a little bit. So then the next person comes in. So you don't go and win the league on your last season.
Take over.
You know, you dip a bit. Like a bit out of form. Not that I think he was. That's your opinion, not mine. I was actually thinking about this bizarrely on a run the other day about how, I guess with the journalistic aspect.
You're in trouble. If you're thinking about journos on the run, you've got some problems now.
Well, thinking about the game and how things work and thinking about AI. Like, obviously, so say a player is thinking about leaving. Could an AI system call, say, a Shane Richardson or Tony Mestroff and get information out of them and like, oh, we're not too sure. And yeah, obviously you're looking with a very puzzled look on my face. I finished the run and go, what the hell was I thinking about? I was even thinking about how AI is better than people like you, Chammy, because it can have two conversations. It can have an infinite number of conversations at the same time. See, with you, people are always calling. There's only one Michael Chammas. Well, Michael Chammas. But you can only have one phone call at one time. Where my AI writer, he can talk
to the AI of the other people.
He can talk to everybody at the same time.
Okay.
So you see the advantage
So
here?
you're trying to ruin my career, ruin all our careers and say we're not needed anymore.
But then,
I've actually been given a lot of thought about AI and how it will change the landscape for us. I think obviously some sporting organisations like Wimbledon have moved to AI doing match reports for them. That's fine. It's numbers, it's data, and it crunches them and it puts a story together. But unless the world is going to allow AI to listen in to phone calls, how are they going to get the information?
Well, because
there are privacy laws.
Yeah, because the AI is the phone call. Hey, it's AI Chammas here calling Shane Richardson, Tony Mistroff.
So you think these guys are going to tell my AI more than they tell me?
What do you think about the DCE? Like, and they refine the AI to have a little bit of banter, a bit sweetening up, and like, hey, if you look after me here, I won't, I'll. You see where I'm going.
I've had this conversation with Adam Joycey, the Bulldogs chairman. He's an AI guru. He said to me that where the world is leading to is your AI will call let's just say in your example, my AI will call Shane Richardson's AI. There'll be a virtual conversation taking place, providing a summary to the person. Is that the world we're heading towards?
I sincerely hope not.
Well, it might be easy for me. I can just sit at home, wait for the summary, and then just put my story together. Don't have to check facts.
And you could go on and live forever, like technically.
Once I die, my AI continues my legacy.
Hey, you don't go. The AI keeps pumping out your content.
AI takes over Buzz's column. That's good.
Buzz lives forever.
Yes.
The immortal, you actually can become immortal. Your column goes forever. It doesn't give much hope for the next generation of aspiring journalists.
Who cares? We keep getting royalties for our family until they're forever. It's good. I like your idea. Let's go there.
But in summary, the person who does take over in written form is going to be under some pressure to deliver.
I hope it's ready and he fails.
Oh.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
I think you did. Is there going to be... I know we're going to do a show later on around the top stories for 2026. Is one of the inevitable stories of 2026. Bring back Buzz.
There won't be a campaign from Channel 9, I can tell you that much. Guarantee you that.
Yeah, but I'd love to see the march, the big march toward NRL HQ. Bring back Buzz on a Sunday.
Oh, mate. Who's Widely going to bag now? That's the problem.
Yeah.
I enjoy reading the back and forth between the two attack dogs of the companies.
Don't underestimate the power of hate.
Yeah.
The power of hate is absolutely incredible, and people love to pick a side. And if everyone's
which side are you on, Jimmy?
Friendly and nice.
Nine or Fox?
You know what side I'm on.
Aren't you off contract?
If everyone's you know what side I'm on? The buy round.
Okay,
yeah. We're a bit of a Switzerland. We're friends with all. We got.
Yeah.
Mixed with both crowds. We go with the win. Well, I'm a bit like Don King. Go with the winners.
I've seen your background on so many podcasts. You're a very generous guy.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get stuck into some of the real deal. And with coaching, I think it's fair to say at the end of 2025, 2 coaches get moved on. Some are predicting it would be 3. That third person is Todd Payten at the Cowboys. And I think the reason he is under the most amount of pressure from all 17 NRL club coaches is because of strength of roster and the fact that last season they were the second worst defensive team in the competition, and they had, relatively speaking, a healthy roster throughout the duration of season 2025. Is this a fair assessment that he is already being spoken about for he needs a strong start to keep his job?
Well, if you're looking at the sackometer for 2026 for coaches, he's number 1. He is the guy in the firing line. Lucky to survive 2025, in my opinion, as for the reasons that you mentioned with that roster. Been there a long time. And my understanding, after the club conducted a review, this year, they've decided to give him the start of next season. It's 3 months, 10 weeks. He's got 10 rounds to save himself.
So is that the way these clubs look at it and go, you've got 10 games, no mitigating circumstances, like an injury crisis, like a breakdown of a Dearden, or, and we hope that Dearden's fit and throughout the season. We don't want to see that, but we're naive to think that injury crises don't hit. Yeah. Is this 10 games?
I think it's let's revisit this conversation at the end of round 10. Roughly 3 months, but they might have a specific date. I was told it was 10 weeks. So they'll sit down as a club at the 10 round mark and say, okay, where are we? What are those mitigating circumstances? Have we improved in the areas that we identified that we need to improve? Are we going backwards? And is this guy the answer to delivering a premiership for this club? If they don't believe that's the case, then they'll move on.
Sorry, Chammy, is one of the questions that they would ask as well, who is out there to improve us?
Well, I felt as though Josh Hannay would have been... There's no doubt they would have had some private conversations around what the future looks like if they moved on from Todd Payten. Now, the obvious answer is probably off the market now. Well, we say probably off the market, but who knows what's happening over there now with Josh Hannay and the Gold Coast Titans after the revelations that Bellamy could be going over there at any point. But I don't think there is... To me, the one, if they're going to move on from Todd Payten, I would think would be Brad Arthur.
Not Willie Peters.
Well, I think Willie Peters will get... Well, obviously you look at Willie Peters. I think Willie Peters will end up in Sydney. I think Brad Arthur's got a connection to the North Queensland. He's played up there as a player coach in the local league. And he would be, I reckon, a good fit for them. Now, there's rumblings around Willie Peters and some of the Sydney clubs. There'd been talk around the Tigers previously, whether or not Seibold and Manly there. If I had to guess, I would say that Willie Peters would end up in Sydney when he comes back, when he eventually gets a job in Australia. Now, I have no concrete knowledge of that. He's done a fantastic job at Hull KR. But they're probably the two, Jimmy, yeah? Brad Arthur, taking leads from ninth to third. They were unlucky to lose in the last second to
St.
Helens. And Willie's done a fantastic job. Then there's some other left field guys that you start to think, okay, well, what are the teams that have had success? You look at Brisbane, they've had a great year. What about their assistant coaches? Does Ben Teo's been highly regarded for a while. Does someone like a Trent Barrett get another chance?
I could see Benny Teo being highly sought after.
Yeah.
Like very much so. So articulate, a real passion for coaching. He's shown he's not afraid to move. He's experienced rugby union. I think he'd be one of the next cabs off the rank when it comes to head coaching.
Well, he's done a good job defensively with, like, if you think, yes, the Broncos leaked some points in those first halves in the finals, but under pressure, that defence held up in really pivotal moments. Like, yes, when they were complacent first half, it could have been better, but under fatigue, under pressure against Melbourne, against Canberra, and against Penrith, that defence held up. So that puts him in the frame for one of those next coaching jobs.
A lot of people don't like to see trainers or coaches going onto the field, but I know that that's Benny Teo's job, which sometimes isn't necessarily the assistant coach's job, but he's out there for the specific reason that they listen to him.
Yeah.
They respond to his direction. They respond to his instructions. So that's half the battle of coaching. It is getting your players to buy in and listen. So there's a reason for me why Benny Teo is out there barking instruction, because he's got the respect of that playing group that they go, okay, we're gonna act on this information that he is delivering to us. So I think that's huge. But just back to the 10 weeks, 10 weeks, roughly 9 games. Do the administrators have, like, your 6-3 is okay, 5-4, anything, like any negative record?
I don't think they'd go in with a set. Like, these situations are, they would have their doubts already. They don't undertake the review that they did. So if they would highlight deficiencies in Todd Payten's coaching that they want to improve, And it might not be marked by wins and losses, but off field, one of the key things that I continue to hear from people, and not all people, but people within the Cowboys organisation, is that he might not have the relationship with some of the players that he needs to. That there are a few guys who aren't quite on board with the vision that he's selling. So that needs to improve. The communication with the players and getting them on board. And there's no doubt there's been tension with Jason Taumalolo from the moment he arrived, from the very first game that he coached in that press conference, when he said that he didn't. I think it was he didn't play him for the 80 minutes and explained the reasons why. So the roster, you would agree, Jimmy, is good enough to play finals football. You got Tom Dearden there. You've got Drinkwater. You had Reece Robson. I know he's going to the Roosters. The forward pack, very good players in the forward back with Jeremiah Nanai. I know he's had some injuries with Helam Lukey, but the nucleus of that football team, most coaches would take into their roster. So the excuses are running out for Todd Payten, which is why I've got him number one on the sackometer for next year.
Well, it's such a sought-after job as well. We spoke about a Willie Peters that could maybe pause and wait and really hold on for a job of a good quality to become available. So for somebody like him, this is a job that you would take because of the roster that has been assembled. There's no one out there in the coaching or the aspiring NRL head coaches that would bypass this unless they didn't want to move to Townsville. It's so attractive. And
what about Kevy, Jimmy?
He would definitely be in the conversation. Absolutely.
Having worked with Tom Dearden at the Ashes.
Yeah. It's interesting what you say about administration not worrying too much about wins and losses. Maybe it's a bit of a feel or an how it is on the eye, because there was times this year where the Cowboys, defensively, statistically, not great, but on the eye, some of the poorest I've seen. Where one particular game where the Dolphins left-hand side attack against a Cowboys right-hand side attack, which is both sides stacked.
Yeah.
But in terms of defense, it was Dolphins went through on 3 to 5 occasions on that left edge, and they were queuing up.
Yeah.
Which is a bad sign that nobody's been taken out. Like, you just don't. There's a reason you don't see it, because defenders are smart enough to know that whatever my read is, I've got to block this guy from being a support player.
Yeah.
And that just didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's a concern. You talk about feel, right? You get the feel not only from the way they're performing, but I remember speaking to a coach, well, a CEO actually. It was years ago. Justin Pascoe was at the Tigers. And when they were looking at Jason Taylor's future, they walked into the sheds after a loss at Canberra. I think it was round 3. And they'd made their decision they'd made up their mind on the back of the feel in the dressing room after the game, the vibe from the players. And that would be part of it. The people in the inner sanctum at the North Queensland Cowboys, getting a feel for what the players are starting to think. Now, I don't like this whole player power notion, but if you've lost the dressing room, it becomes pretty apparent, doesn't it, Jimmy? Like, if you've got guys who aren't working towards a common goal with your coach, you can see that. And that would be part of Michael Luck's job there as the head of football. And there's talk he's going to be the CEO of the football club. So it's going to be his role. He knows what a football team looks like. He knows a dressing room, and he'll be able to tell the signs that they should pull the trigger or not.
Yeah, I think you can often see where the sides are playing for each other, and if they're not playing for each other, they're definitely not playing for their coach. So definitely, Todd Payten, number one NRL coach under pressure. They need a good start, and it needs to look good as well.
Who'd be number 2, Jimmy? Who's on number 2 on the coaching most players that coach under the most pressure? Would you say? Look, I think Anthony Seibold.
Yeah, I would say again, when we look at strength of roster, and obviously they've got a key part of the fabric of that football club still in an element of limbo at time of recording, which again is another part of coaching. That they could play really well, but they can't afford to lose Tom, and that the impact that has on Jake. This has the potential to set Manly back years if they don't get this right.
There are a whole heap of key decisions and factors in this Manly situation. The first one, most importantly, is Anthony Seibold hasn't set the world alight as coach of the club. Fair?
I think he'd be disappointed
Yeah.
with what they produced last season.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fair.
I don't think it's a pass mark for his time there so far. So there's that element. 2, what's going on with the ownership of the club? We keep hearing rumblings that things could be changing from an ownership point of view, that it isn't a happy camp. That causes disharmony amongst the playing group. Daly Cherry Evans leaving. Whether or not you agree with the way Manly handled it, what that has done to create the narrative that Manly have disrespected him and Manly don't know how to negotiate. It's been exacerbated by the fact of what you spoke about, which is the Tom Trbojevic situation.
That's not a good look for Manly. I think with DCE, there was so complex. Don't know if we'll ever get to the truth. There'll be DCE's version of the truth. There'll be Manly's version of the truth. There'll be what actually happened. There'll be, all sorts of innuendo and complexities around that. But Manly could come out from that and be like, hey, this is DCE's fault, not ours.
Yeah.
But with what's happened with Turbo, up to time of recording, it's sort of the eyes go towards the Manly Seagulls football
There's
club.
a trend starting.
Yes,
and
exactly.
and to be honest, I've heard similar situations happen with Ruben Garrick. We know Ruben Garrick's gone to market. An offer was discussed with him, gone back to the club, and then the offers come back lower than what was discussed. So there is a trend here, and that's a concern for Manly. Then you put on top of the fact that what happens with Tom? What's the transition period? Does Leo Hopewadi go to fullback? When does that happen? Jamal Fogarty coming to the club? To be honest, I've got huge question marks on Luke Brooks. I could see a time, not in the not too distant future, where Luke Brooks isn't part of that first grade team, and the Joey Walsh and the raps on him. Fogarty's coming to the club. What happens there? So those are answers. Some of them are not even in that. Some of them Seibold cannot even control himself. So to me, there's a storm brewing at Manly, and I can see Anthony Seibold being the casualty of the situation that has arisen if things don't start well on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the coach is ultimately the first person to go, and then not great that new owners, or if the potentiality of new owners, like they've got no relationship. Well, we assume they'd have no relationship, so they can be ruthless.
Yeah.
Where it's harder to make that call if you've got a working relationship with somebody. We know that those emotional levers that you can pull to salvage an extra week, month, half a season, whatever it may be, up until a certain point in the season. But if new owners come in, they can be absolutely ruthless, and then as can a new coach, and we're starting from the beginning.
I'd say what doesn't reflect well, Jim, because they're valid points. But I think the thing that doesn't reflect well for Seibold over the off-season is, A, Michael Ennis is gone. B, the attack coach, Stephen Hales, he's decided to go. He's joined up with Newcastle, despite being contracted to Manly. And the third part of this is Adam O'Brien. They thought they had him over the line. He's instead decided to go and sign with the Bulldogs as an assistant coach. That's 3 pretty significant decisions being made that have worked against your club. Now, I know the Michael Ennis one is extenuating circumstances. Felt like things had blown up and there was a bit of tension with his management company and the Seagulls. But when you lose your attack consultant, your attack coach in Stephen Hales, who, to be fair, if one thing that's been good about Manly in recent years has been their attack, and then you can't even attract Adam O'Brien when you gifted him a job, and he's gone to the Bulldogs, where to do attack right at the Bulldogs, I just think that doesn't speak well. I think people are concerned internally about the future of the coach, and people are distancing himself from what I believe they may feel is a sinking ship.
It's an interesting point, that, because, again, an attractive proposition. And it's surprising that about O'Brien, because with assistant coaches, they're often, look, they're all in on the coach and they're all in on the club, but you can also forgive them and accept that they've got aspirations to be the head coach at that particular football club. And you'd think with a guy like O'Brien. Is that going to happen at the Dogs? I would say highly unlikely.
No.
Like, Ciraldo is locked in there long term. And if that was to, for any bizarre circumstances where that relationship is fractured and he has moved on from that football club, with all due respect, I can't see O'Brien being given the reins on anything more than an intern basis. Where at the Manly Seagulls, however, if he gets that strong working relationship with the players, and I could see more possibilities at Manly to be back head coaching, as opposed to what would be at the Dogs for O'Brien. Yeah,
definitely. But I think there's a trend starting to emerge in rugby league that if you are the next in line at that club when a coach gets moved on, like Blake Green was at Newcastle, it's hard to escape this perception that you are too close to the players. Because when the players start backing you like they did Blake Green, the alarm bells start to raise. Well, is he too close to the players? And that's the hard part. And I guess for Adam O'Brien, this is different. Adam O'Brien said that he doesn't see himself moving back into coaching anytime soon. I think Adam O'Brien is exhausted, and he's moved back into a role where he's obviously going to work hard. He knows his stuff. But the pressure that it puts on him and his partner and those around him, it is huge. So I don't think he has any desire to jump back into the furnace anytime soon, which is why I don't think that played a factor. Because if he wanted to be a head coach again, you're right, Jimmy, he'd go to Manly because he's a chance of walking in halfway through the year and taking over.
Yeah, well, I think you're right in terms of who is next on that pressure barometer. Speaking of coaches, it's not just the NRL. We have a mid-season competition, otherwise known as State of Origin. Laurie Daley, comes into the role. Game one goes so well, and they win up there at Suncorp. You could argue the hardest job was done in the beginning. They ultimately go on to lose that series 2-1, which Origin is the pressure cooker of all pressure cookers when it comes to rugby league football. If Coach Slater had lost one of those games, despite his great record as coach, we would be having a different conversation. But with Laurie Daley now back into that fairness, having the ability to wrap up the series with 2 games to go, that surely then puts him in. I don't know whether job on the line, but
100%, Jimmy.
Oh, you think it's job on the line?
No doubt.
Like if he doesn't win, are you saying if he doesn't win this series, he's gone?
He's not contracted beyond this year. I can't. 26. You can't.
Sorry, so he's contracted for 26.
Yes.
So if you think that they sever ties if he doesn't get a series?
You don't think you have to? Like his overall record, and I like Laurie. I think he's done a decent job with the team this year. They should have won the series, but when you look at his overall records, 6 series, he's won 1. His total wins, I think it's 7 wins from 18 matches, with a winning rate of below 39%. That win came in 2014, Jimmy. If he doesn't get the job done, it's obvious. You have to move on. It's like you get judged by 3 games, the impact on 3 games. I get it. He's coming back in, so you give him 2 years. The first year, he needs leeway to implement what he needs to do. But if he can't get it done in 2026, it's time to move on.
Even against that spine that Queensland have, because I think Queensland will be favourites now.
New South Wales on paper is still a better team.
With Walsh, Munster, Dearden and Grant, we're talking at least 2 best position players, at least. And one would make the claim that now Walsh is, with his finals series that he had, not just the grand final, but his final series.
Things can change
that
quickly.
He has, but as it currently stands.
As it currently stands, it's a better spine. But you rewind it 12 months earlier, and would you have had Reece Walsh in front of Dylan Edwards? Of course not. Because things change pretty quickly. But
he was 20 22 then. He's 23 now.
Yeah.
You can't exactly see him going backwards. And when he was, he probably had a quieter injury savage last season. That affects it. But I can't see Walsh going backwards.
There's three key factors.
Or not influencing games to the same level that he.
I don't disagree with you. I think Walsh is the real deal and he'll stay that. But I'm just saying things can change. You add, let's hypothetically say, you add a fit Latrell Mitchell, you add a fit Tom Trbojevic, and you get Mitchell Moses in for the whole series with Nathan Cleary.
Yeah.
Like, it does change pretty quickly. You got the best front rower in the world in Payne Haas. You get Cameron Murray back into that team. Like, New South Wales on paper for the more depth. I get your spine argument, but overall, if you had a selection of a squad of players available, the New South Wales squad, it is definitely a deeper roster.
It's deeper, but not necessarily better. And sometimes the choice paradox comes into play here.
Okay.
Like the very fact that you have to, so let's say everyone's fit and everyone's in form. Coach Slater knows his team.
Well, you had Toya and Shibasaki play for them this year. Like, that wouldn't have been on his list at the start of the year.
No, but you could argue that they, Toya probably and Shibasaki, maybe a few injury casualties, brought them into the side. But I think now Coach Slater would know his starting spine, no doubt.
Yeah. And
a number of key positions that play, or players that will play. I think that the Hammer being one of them. You've got people like Tino locked in. You could argue Gilbert if fit, Flegler if fit. You've got the nucleus of the team there, and there's not going to the one argument player could be, where does Kalen Ponga play? Yeah. But he's certainly not the fullback, and there's certainly not the same level of pressure coming. Let's flip to the other side with New South Wales. Well, Teddy or Dylan Edwards. So you've got to deal with all that fallout.
Yeah.
Is it Teddy or is it Dylan Edwards? Can Moses and Cleary play together?
Yeah.
Or do we need a genuine 5'8"? Like who now is the dummy half? Reece Robson, he goes to the Roosters.
Yeah.
But then, Brayley is on the Australian tour. So you've got these questions in and around that.
That's the same questions that Queensland had into this series. Was it Reece Walsh, or was it going to be Kalen Ponga? We didn't know.
Even the Hammer.
Going to be the Hammer. To be honest, Reece Walsh, he didn't play this year, did he?
No, he's 18th man.
So they had an opportunity to pick him, and they picked the Hammer. Now he's the Australian fullback, and he would have been the Australian fullback whether Hammer was eligible or available to play for Australia. He's the best fullback in the game right now.
And even moving on DCE halfway through the series, but you could argue.
That's the other one, DCE.
You could argue, did we, as in like the NRL consuming public, get affected by it? Did Queensland Rugby League become affected by these issues where we know, and this is no knock on or this is better, this is worse. We know the Sydney media, and we know with the powerful clubs, with the powerful players, with the powerful coaches that want to see their players play State of Origin. How is this going to work? How do you solve a problem like Teddy or Edwards? How do you solve a problem like Moses and Cleary? How do you fit Latrell Mitchell into that side? How do you fit Tommy Turbo, Stephen Crichton? So if Turbo, Latrell, and Stephen Crichton are all fit, pick your best two centres.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think a winger misses out. I think Lomax maybe misses out. You pick Crichton on the wing. Or does Tommy go to fullback?
Maybe. But these and there's
so what's your point? You think Laurie, if he loses the series, should survive?
I'm just saying that these things add to the complexities of it.
Yeah.
Like this actually, we spoke about the depth. I don't think the depth is necessarily a good thing. I think it brings more problems than it solves.
Yeah. Well, that comes down to the coaching and the coaching staff and the selectors to make sure they make the right decisions, like Queensland did this year when they decided Reece Walsh wasn't ready and they brought the Hammer in. Let's be fair, the Hammer was brilliant. Like they did when they dropped Cherry Evans and Dearden comes in and produces what he did. Everything that Billy Slater touched turned to gold in the end. Robert Toya, Shibasaki, all those key decisions went well for Queensland. That's Laurie's job. That's Laurie's. He needs to make sure that everything he touches turns to gold in 26. Otherwise, he'll be back without a job the following year. That's my opinion. He'll have some guys in there who'll support him. I'm sure Dave Trodden, the CEO, he's very close to Laurie. He'll we're walking down memory lane here. Remember what happened the last time that happened? The board went against the CEO. They removed Laurie Daley. They brought Brad Fittler in. And in the end, it started a power play at the New South Wales Rugby League that resulted in the guys like Ray Dibb and Nick Politis being removed or walking away from the board. George Paponis.
Would one of the things that goes in favour of someone like Laurie is there's no obvious candidate to take over. There's no real person out there that's going, people would say, I'd give this person the job.
That's a good point. Who is the next one in line? But you would argue that was the same question this time. I don't think Laurie Daley was, when Freddie decided he wasn't going to take on the job again, was everyone saying it has to be Laurie? No, that wasn't the case at all. And to be fair, people were a bit surprised that Laurie was given the job without really much of a process. I think they had one conversation with Matt King, but that was just a token gesture. That wasn't going to result in him getting the job. So who is it? Is it Michael Ennis? Is it Trent Barrett?
Yeah.
Does Freddie get another crack? Well, there is no obvious answer.
Jimmy. Yeah, there's no glaringly obvious answer. It would be a tough selection process, which again is New South Wales' choice paradox, because you're not going to be able to please everybody. Like you mentioned about the board level struggle, and sometimes a clear candidate is better than choice. Choice is not always good.
Well, choice requires the right decision. It requires research. And that's when people come unstuck. If they don't make the right decision because of a lack of research and a lack of a process, well, then it reflects poorly on them.
Well, one representative coach who has a big job to do, a former representative coach that has a huge job on his hands, and he's not even going to have a game to play. Mal Meninga and the Perth Bears. Now, I guess it's time-sensitive pressure, because I think at the moment, at time of recording, it's kind of like a bit of a fun pressure to be like, I've got to get this right. We've got so many opportunities, so many choices ahead of us, so many options, so many ways this could pan out. We've got the sort of structures, staff set up. A coach's job is around setting the environment. I'm sure Mal is hard at work at that, but he'd want the right people in the dressing room. And as soon as November 1 is alive and well at 1 minute past midnight or 1 second past midnight, they have the ability to start filling up that dressing room with different characters, different abilities. At what point does this become pressure cooker time for Mal and for those decision makers at Perth Bears?
Well, you speak to people at Perth, they're confident what they're going to do, but you speak to people outside within the game and people of high positions at clubland, and there are genuine concerns for what's happening in Perth, that it's going to be a team that's going to struggle for years to come. Now, we know the PNG, the tax-free incentive, you can say what you like about Papua New Guinea, but there is going to be an element of for someone who's going to go there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to cash in. They don't have that lure in Perth. Now, they'll talk about the potential third-party opportunities that are over there, but the reality is, Jimmy, you've done the trip over to Perth. It's not easy. 5 hours each way.
Yeah, but it's not hard.
Yeah, but doing it every week. Every second week.
Every maybe it will be every second week, but maybe it will be they'll look at the draw with the view of
they should.
We're gonna come to Sydney for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, they should. They should make sure they play the Broncos away with the Dolphins and Gold Coast in one hit.
Yeah.
And then come back. So.
We're gonna do the home game. We're gonna have a game on the road at North Sydney Oval against the Warriors.
Yeah.
These and tie that in with a game against Manly at Allianz. Do some significant periods on the road of 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, look, because that's the location. But again, for a lot of players, that would be an attractive. The Warriors do it each and every year. They
Yeah, but
don't have the same.
That's not 5 hours. Like,
No,
you're
it's
talking
not. It's not. But
5 hours minimum, no matter where they go.
Yes, but that said, with the Warriors, they have to go through international, not domestic.
Yeah.
So from door to door, from leave your house to land in the hotel, exactly the same time period. Yes, there's different amount of time in the air from New Zealand versus what it would be from Perth to the Eastern Seaboard. But that said, it's still door to hotel arrival, same amount of time.
Well, and how many comps to the Warriors won?
Well, none, but they've been to grand finals. They're a success story now. They're still
but they've struggled most of their years. They've come good.
They have. They have. And they've obviously built a core of players that have come from that particular area. That was a big attraction when they first came into the competition. Perth, I think that the notion of the geographical location will be a benefit. Perth is a beautiful city. You could set up a life there.
Yeah.
You're going to play football. We look at Melbourne and like that destination. Yes, it's closer in terms of access to Sydney and to Queensland. But at the end of the day, the players are there to play rugby league football. They're not nipping home just because they're an hour and 2 hours away from Brisbane, an hour away from Sydney. They're not just nipping home for the weekend or the afternoon, or a couple of days here and there in the this note. Like, you play for Melbourne. If you're from Sydney or from Queensland, you're based in Melbourne. You may as well be in London or Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same. Like, you are away. Yeah. Like, there's this false sense of security. Oh, we're only an hour flight away. It's like, so what?
Yeah.
So for me, the logistical side of Perth is you're technically away from your family, but you happen to be in a really beautiful city.
I just think about the Dolphins, right? And I would say that it wasn't easy for them to recruit. I don't think they landed a genuine marquee. They've developed into marquee players like the Hammer and Herbie, but when they were actually trying to, they missed out on, at the time, the Kalen Pongas and the Cameron Munsters. It wasn't easy. But the advantage the Dolphins had was picking from a nursery of local talent, okay? Guys, young kids who didn't have to move away from home. They had the southeast Queensland area. They could sign all these young kids, or even first graders who were from the Dolphins or who were living at Brisbane from the Titans or Brisbane. So I would say the majority of their players didn't have to change their lives. But with Perth, you have to convince 30 players to uproot and move away from their families or take their families with them. Every single one of them. You will not have a single local in your squad. The challenge, and I'm not saying that's just part and parcel of it. What I'm saying is they haven't been helped by the NRL because they should be given an advantage. It's not level playing field. It's not the Dolphins. The Dolphins had local talent to take. They have to pay potentially overs for most of their players to convince them to do what only a handful would have had to do at the Dolphins. So that's why I feel like that's going to be massive pressure because, yes, they're going to be able to throw money at someone and they're probably going to have to pay overs to get someone like a Tino or a Munster. But all that does is create enormous pressure on the rest of your salary cap when you're paying record money for someone at the top end. And they're probably going to do that. So that's why I think there's pressure on them to get a balanced roster to be competitive. And I fear that if that roster isn't competitive from the get-go, they don't have the local support to be able to sustain them. Well, to be able to continue and build off-field if they are down the bottom of the ladder for years. Yeah. And that's my fear. So that's why it's pressure on Mal. Yeah. And Mal himself, a legend of the game, cannot speak higher of his accomplishments as a player and as a representative coach. But he's never had success as a club coach. He had a little stint 25 years ago. This is uncharted waters for Mal Meninga. Not saying he can't do it, but it adds to the pressure gauge. We're doing a podcast on who's under pressure. A coach who's never coached in the NRL, trying to build a franchise, having never recruited before, with a CEO who's never been a CEO at a rugby league club, worked at Channel 7, in a market that hasn't had a rugby league team in a quarter of a century. That is pressure. And I hope they overcome that pressure to make it a success.
Well, I think because it's so important to the game as a whole, right? Even when you think about Melbourne coming in an AFL-dominated market, it was no good Melbourne just existing and being there. And even you referenced Papua New Guinea that are going to come into the competition in another year, in another 12 months' time. We'll be having the same conversation about Papua New Guinea. I think, with all due respect, Papua New Guinea is a real feel-good story around this rugby league loving nation coming into the comp. Now, I don't think they need instant success to be to have the love and the appreciation that they're adding to the competition. With all due, I don't think they need that. It's not a requirement.
Because the fanaticism is so big.
Exactly. So, but with Melbourne, I think they, or we the game, needed it to an extent. And I think the same is over there in Perth. And the point I'm trying to make is there a world where the NRL recognise that this isn't as streamlined or going as fast or as strong as we need, where they approach the clubs and go, do we calibrate? That's the word I'm looking for, around how this
You're spending too much
franchise.
time on Instagram, Jimmy. You just want to collaborate with everyone.
I don't spend any time on Instagram. Is there a way or a world where the NRL approach the clubs and say, we need to change a few things here to ensure that this doesn't fail?
That ship sailed. They should have done that when they had the discussions at the start with the clubs around the 18th team. That should have been in the conversations, but they've told the clubs they won't be given any special treatment. You can't go back on that.
But why not? If it's just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean that it shouldn't have or that it won't.
Well, I've asked the NRL, and they've said this is what we're going with, because I am strong of the opinion they are setting up the Perth Bears to fail without giving them some sort of incentive. Like Papua New Guinea tax-free incentive is there. And you need it, because otherwise you're not getting players to go over there. I'm sorry, you're not. And I'm not saying it needs as much as Papua New Guinea, but it needs a bit. Like the AFL do when they bring in new teams. They did with the NRL when they brought in the Melbourne Storm or the St George Illawarra Dragons. When they merged, they slowly reduced the salary cap over years. Maybe they should have started off with a higher salary cap. But I mentioned it to other clubs and they said, well, that's not fair. So I'll give you this example. They said, okay, let's say they have a 20% more than us in the salary cap to spend. I'm just throwing numbers. Let's say they have 13 million, we have 11. Okay, so that's $2 million more to play with. So if you're the agent of a player, let's call it, who we got? What player are we going to have? We're going to go Liam Henry. Let's say Liam Henry, off contract into this year. If the Perth Bears are after Liam Henry and they have a $13 million salary cap compared to 11, they can offer him a lot more.
Yeah.
But so the other clubs, Penrith, they want to keep him, they're competing and have to offer money against the $13 million salary cap. So suddenly their salary cap's being skewed because they're having to offer an extra $100,000 to $200,000 to try and compete. Well,
they just don't match that deal. They're not. That's the idea of doing this, is to have the Perth bit. Well, but then that's on the clubs where you can't do it with them all. You can't do it with them all. So the idea of extra funds for Perth or their salary cap being inflated or a higher percentage for a shorter period of time, what that does is enables them, the Perth Bears, to offer players more without it throwing their cap out. But it stops the Penriths, the stronger clubs like the Roosters, the Melbourne Storm, the Brisbane Broncos, of holding on to all these players, especially those players that would be considered like squad numbers 10 to 20, where, is it worth me going for an extra 50K? Or is it worth me going, the only way you're going to bring those players over is guaranteed starters. So you offer, you're not going to go for you're likely not going to go for the same money.
No.
Maybe you will, maybe you won't, if you can guarantee some things around some minutes or I'll be one of the starters there, and I'm not getting much game time at my current football club. Yeah. But I think I think again, whole of game approach that would have been a more sensible.
I agree. They rushed it through. They should have thought about this.
I think I can't remember if it was the CEO or the recruitment person or Mal speak about wanting 10 players by Christmas. Do you think that's possible? That's November 1. That's roughly speaking 8 weeks, less than 8 weeks.
Possible. Depends on what caliber of player. I'm sure they've got guys in line to negotiate with straight away, and I don't think they're keen to announce like the first player to ever sign with the Bears. They feel it's unnecessary pressure on the players to do that, on that player. They want to announce 3 or 4 together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I remember I wrote the story, the Dolphins' first signing was a young kid, Harrison Graham, and then he was touted as the Dolphins' first ever signing. And I think there's a view that they don't want to do that to a particular young kid, so they want to announce a few together. But look, Jimmy, I hope it's a success. I think that the decision to go to Perth is the right one. My only view is they could have done more to ensure that they are given a better chance at succeeding than they have been.
Yeah, I think at the moment it's a good, fun pressure, but very time sensitive, and it goes without saying, the longer this goes on, and the more they miss out, or you see other players commit to their current club. We saw Herbie Farnworth recently commit for another year. That's him off the market.
Well, it's only one. It's only Well, he's off the market for Perth.
Yeah,
but it's only 1 year. It's interesting.
It probably raises more questions than it answers. That I mean, good on him for doing
it. Tax free.
Maybe.
Actually, no, he wouldn't be eligible.
Why?
Would he be eligible? Where is he a citizen of Australia?
I don't know, but you could quickly fix that up.
Because all your mates in England, if they're going to sign with Papua New Guinea, they don't get tax-free dollars. The deal's between the Australian government and the PNG government.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. I think Herbie has been here more than long enough that he would qualify for citizenship. And I'm not a citizen yet. I'm just a PR. But if it was meant the difference between tax-free, I'd become a citizen. I'd sell my soul. I'd sell my soul.
Well, you're gonna because I don't know how it works. I think it's place of residence. That's some of the finer detail they'll have to nail.
That's an interesting one. That the inability, the difference that it would make for any
New Zealanders.
New Zealand, yes, it's going to be huge, massive difference. I guess that's a watch this space for 12 months' time. Speaking of clubs, the Canterbury Bulldogs, I just want to point out that season 23, we would love this situation. Like how quickly expectations have shifted, in 21, 22, not much to celebrate whatsoever. Cam Serraldo comes in, even in 23, I think it was equal wins from the year before, and it was a bit, is this working? Fast forward 2 years, and now expectations are ridiculously high, coming top of expected to win the comp.
The pressure's there to succeed, and self-inflicted in a lot of ways, Jimmy. Let's be fair dinkum. The way they handled this season brought undue pressure on the club. And I think some of that pressure is uncalled for too, but it has brought it upon the club.
Yeah.
I stand by the fact that I think Lachlan Galvin's a great signing and he'll be good for that football club. But I don't think the club handled it well, signing him mid-season and creating a circus that has led to the circus that has unfolded in the last 6 months. Like that could have been handled differently, Jimmy, from Lockie, from his management and from the Bulldogs. They should have foreseen what would happen if he broke contract. Well, no, let me reword that. He didn't break contract, but he definitely attempted to break contract, got the release that he was after. And what it has done is now created this disdain towards the Bulldogs from a lot of people in the NRL, from a certain section of media. And they put that target on their back by doing what they did mid-season, by Galvin doing what he did to the Tigers, by his manager orchestrating what he did.
What did Galvin do to the Tigers?
The way it exited was ugly, Jimmy. But
I don't think any of it was his doing.
He could have told his manager, I don't want to start a legal suit against the club for bullying me. He could have told his manager not to go to the club with a dossier outlining a list of grievances, which included Benji Marshall's inability to get the best out of him. It didn't have to go down that path. They could have waited till the end of the year. It's the Tigers' fault for blowing it up to begin with.
Well,
You're getting me fired up again.
No,
the start of it was...
I'm going to go into bat for a 19-year-old that is beyond green.
Yeah, it's his manager should have told him.
Doesn't really understand maybe the ramifications of these big decisions, and maybe the advice to him should have been different.
Well, the Bulldogs should have seen it. The Bulldogs should have known. They could see what was happening for weeks around Lachie Galvin. That before they even came into the conversation, the circus was crazy. They should have seen that bringing in mid-season. Forget the Toby Sexton argument. I'm with them that Toby Sexton wasn't the answer. That's not the debate that's happening right now. The debate is, was it good for anyone for him to walk out on the Tigers mid-season, join the club, add so much pressure to the football team? Would it have been better to just play out the year and wait and sign him in the off-season, get some clean air and do it in a way that wasn't going to mean he's rocking up literally the next day after signing the deal, trying to learn a new defensive system, trying to get his head around. Forget it. I know they all backed him publicly, but there would have been some people in that organisation thinking, well, is that the way you want to treat Toby Sexton? Like, is that how we're going to do things here? There might have been a small number, but it still plays a factor.
Yeah.
This isn't a criticism of them signing Lachlan Galvin or me saying he shouldn't be their halfback or 5'8". I'm just saying that the pressure that we're talking about right now is largely self-inflicted by the club.
They are under pressure because now there is an expectation that this decision will pay dividends. And this is where I think you could certainly argue there's more on this season to perform than there was last season, because the full off season, okay, the moving on of a few different players. Look, even you think back to last year, one of the key blokes in the dressing room was Reid Marnie, and people were sort of insinuating that Galvin coming in meant Reid Marnie was no longer in the 17. It's like, well, hang on, one plays 7 and one plays 9. Like, that's a different conversation entirely. But some people just wanted to link the A to B causation, which it just wasn't. That was whether Lachie Galvin comes to that football club mid-season or not. I think the power brokers and the decision makers, the coach particularly, makes that call to put Hayward at 9 and Marnie out the side. So I think that got caught in this tornado and swept into part of the narrative, which was, in my opinion, incorrect. But the pressure now does come on the Bulldogs because I think more is on Galvin to perform this year. What position he plays, what are the ramifications of him playing in that position where the juggling parts move. We've seen Stephen Crichton at the back end of last year be named in the centres, defend in the centres, but then certainly in the good ball attack, position himself more like a fullback. Could he make that transition? We know the importance of the fullback role, and that's not a knock on Connor Tracy, but you would imagine the influence of Crichton there, especially then you had the option to put Payten in one centre, Cherry in the other, Galvin maybe at 6, Mitch Woods perhaps at 7, or another. I think there's also a fair bit of pressure from a few people around the club around Leo Thompson that one reason or another didn't have a great year at Newcastle.
Missed out on the New Zealand team selection.
Missed out on New Zealand, and I think that's not a bad thing for the Dogs. I think he comes in with high expectations. For me personally, I think he'll be that number 1 middle, and he's the person to follow, which I think will help Max King. I think he did a fantastic job, but he was at times struggling to carry that workload. I think Josh Curran will benefit. I think a lot of these lads will benefit from Leo Thompson if he performs at his potential.
Well, Matt Burton's the big one. You mentioned that, Jimmy. To me, that's the bloke under the most pressure is Matt Burton, because young Mitch Woods is coming through. Galvin's not a 7. And I'm not saying that. Some of the great halfbacks in our game are saying that he's not a 7. Andrew Johns says he sees him as a 6, not a 7. So if that's the case, and that's what the judges are saying, Burton's not your 7 either, is he? So one of them's going to have to playing a different position. I don't think Galvin's big enough to move to lock. I don't think he'll handle playing in the middle of the field just yet, this part of his career. So if Galvin's your 6, Woods is your 7, how does Burton, on close to $1 million feel about playing in the centres? Does he then? There's been murmurs, clubs denied around Matt Burton. But does he then think, okay, well, I want to play 6 somewhere? Does he come on the radar of the Perth Bears? This may all be hypothetical, but it is noise in rugby league. In a 24/7 news cycle, with the interest in the game as at an all-time high, these are inevitable storylines that the Bulldogs will have to contend with.
Yeah,
as long as well as trying to produce quality football on the field. So, I'm fascinated to see how that plays out.
You know what? It's become now, and this is where the game's going to go, where people will be wanting to know where people line up in pre-season training, because we know we do in pre-season you do 13 on 13.
Yeah.
Like, have you heard Crichton's been working a bit at fullback, or Burton's been a bit of right centre, left centre. These are the stories that are going to be coming, quote unquote, coming out of Bulldogs HQ. So,
well, the good thing is for the Bulldogs, no Burton on the Kangaroo tour. Galvin's obviously not playing rep football. Crichton has been injured, so he's not going to play for Samoa. The key players in that football team that they need there on day 1 of preseason are all going to be around.
Yeah.
A lot of the teams are disadvantaged by the fact they're not able to work on anything because representative players means they can't train until January. Well, the Bulldogs are going to have a good preseason. Leo Thompson's missed out, as we said earlier.
Yeah.
Who else is there? There aren't.
Kick out Fiji.
Yeah, kick out Fiji. That's okay. You can contend with that. Connor Tracy won't be playing. So you got your 1, you're arguably your 6 and 7. You got your captain. Kiraz missed out. If you go through that team, the nucleus,
Max King could have been a bit of a smoky for the Kangaroos. He misses out.
Yeah. So all these guys, the Bulldogs are gonna have a good preseason.
Jacob Preston is probably the.
Preston's going with Australia.
He's in the Kangaroos.
So they're 2 back rowers, but you can live without 2 back rowers in preseason. You can work with as long as your spine's there, and they're gonna have Haywood there. So you're 1, 6, 7, and 9. Cherry missed out on any selection. So you've got your nucleus there. I think the Bulldogs will have a good preseason to sort out what they want to do. Hopefully they are clear on what that is. And none of this wishy-washy, we don't know what we're going to do, and then chop and change, and you back them. And if that means Mitch Woods is your halfback to start the year, well then that's you got to stick to that plan.
Yeah, we sure do. It's going to be, I think, like I said at the beginning of the show, pressure is a privilege, and the Dogs now have reset where they're at compared to 23. The pressure is on to deliver a premiership. It's been way too long, and I think that comes with the territory. This is I say this wholeheartedly. This is a position as a Bulldogs fan and former player I want us to be in.
Yeah.
Like, I want us to be, how are we going to get this right so we can go for a premiership? What I don't want is the pressure of, we need to clean out the board. Yeah. Who's going to be the coach? We can't sign anyone. Like I say, where we've come from 21, 22, even 23, this is a great position for the Bulldogs football to be in, because it is now pressure to deliver a title, not pressure to avoid a wooden spoon, which is a completely different kettle of fish. We'll quickly go through. We'll not get chance to touch on them, but we may do another episode on this, maybe about some individuals that are under pressure. Dylan Brown being one of them at the Newcastle Knights, DCE and his move to the Sydney Roosters. Those two players under huge amount of pressure. One we didn't touch on, South Sydney performance staff. They've got to get their star players on the field for longer. Being available to play is an underrated attribute, I believe. So that is something we can touch on a little bit later. But Chammy, one thing's for sure, some of these are going to come to fruition, and I think we may look back with these receipts and go, "Oh, we were on the money there."
Yep, I think, pressure, as you said, pressure is a privilege, they say in rugby league. Some of these will be privileged to be under the pressure that we've spoken about. Some of them might not be in a job in 12 months' time.
With different types of pressure as well.
Yeah.
Some of the pressure to succeed, some of the pressure to survive. But it's been great to be joined by you, Chammy. We'll be catching you soon for another episode, not too dissimilar to this.
Thank you, Jimmy.